Alright, the next skill in our series is solving quadratic equations. So a quadratic equation is the highest power of x being 2, or the degree of x being 2. Now, there are three ways of solving quadratic equations: by factoring and using the zero product property, by completing the square, which we will not be doing in this course. It is a shortcut, but we're not going to do it in this course. But what we're really going to concern ourselves with is solving by the quadratic formula. Okay? But I'm going to go over factoring for you and solving in these methods real quick, and then I'll dedicate another video to a couple of examples of solving by the quadratic formula. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to solve this by factoring. The first thing I'm going to do is I always have to have ax squared plus bx plus c equaling 0. So I have to subtract both sides by 4x before I can do anything. Now this has a factor of what we call a GCF, or greatest common factor, of x. So I'm going to pull the x out, and that gives me x minus 4 equals 0. Now if I were to solve that, I'm going to use something called the zero product property, which says that one of these guys, either x has to equal 0 or x minus 4 has to equal 0, because anything times 0 equals 0. So we don't know which one's 0, so we're going to set both of them equal to 0. We got one at x equals 0, and then the other at x equals 4. Now, I can do something called the difference of two squares when I have something, when I have something in the form of a squared plus b squared y squared, or something like that. So it has to be a square, a subtraction, and a square. So in this case, we got x squared and 11 squared. Squared minus 11 squared equals 0. I can break this up as x plus 11 times x minus 11. Because if I distributed this out, the middle terms are going to go away. See here? That equals 0x. So that means x equals plus or minus 11. Okay? Now I'm going to go into the quadratic formula. Or factoring a trinomial, I should say, some more. When I'm factoring, now I really do want you to use the quadratic formula, because we're going to be working with decimals throughout this entire class, and decimals are going to require the quadratic formula, but just for the sake of saying I taught you this stuff, I'm going to show you how to factor a trinomial. So the first thing I do, I have x squared plus 6x plus 5. I'm going to write out a set of parentheses, two sets of parentheses multiplying each other. X squared has to break up into x times x. I have no other options there. 5, I'm going to take the factors of 5 that multiply to 5 and then add to 6. In this case, I only have 1 and 5. And I have a plus and a plus, so that indicates a plus and a plus right here. Now, if I were to solve this for equaling 0, that would be x plus 1 times x plus 5 equals 0, or x equals negative 1 or negative 5. Okay? So now the quadratic formula, we have x equals negative b plus b squared minus 4ac all over 2a for the standard form of a polynomial. This is called the standard form of a polynomial. And a cannot equal 0, otherwise we have a linear term, and this doesn't make sense to use. Oh, whoops, so I wanted to show you how to do that on this equation. So a equals 1, b equals 6, and c equals 5 in this case. and I'm going to do out and substitute all these values and then evaluate. I will give you more examples in another video, but just for ha-has, we're going to do it right here as well. It won't hurt to do it a couple of times. X equals -6 plus or minus the square root of 6 squared minus 4 times 1 times 5. That is all over 2 times 1. X is going to equal -6 plus or minus the square root of 36 minus 20 all over 2. X equals -6 plus or minus the square root of 16 all over 2. X equals -6 plus or minus 4 all over 2. So X equals -6 plus 4 over 2, or X equals -6 minus 4 over 2. So this is -2 over 2. That is X equals -1. Or X equals -5. And that is what we got over here. So, as you can see, the quadratic formula for solving quadratics is really where it's at. You just got to know what your A, B, and C are.